Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Monday. It's November 11th. It is 2024. We have a 5-game NBA slate to talk about here on today's podcast. Derek, Dave, what's up, chat? Hope everyone's having a fantastic, I guess it's not even technically Sunday night anymore. It's technically Monday morning. I fell asleep on the couch watching a movie with my wife. And yeah, I woke up and I was like, oh, I got the podcast. So riding solo tonight or today, depending on when you listen to it. Only a 5-game slate, so figured I'd do a solo podcast today. Yeah, I mean, I think the championship race was solid. I mean, I think solid is the good term. I mean, no one wanted to see Joey Logano win except for Joey Logano fans. But hats off to Joey Logano and Paul Wolf. They keep doing their thing. And yeah, I mean, Christopher Bell looked really good. Ryan Blaney looked really good. Like I said, I don't think Phoenix is the best race for a championship. I've been saying this I feel like for way too long. But yeah, I mean, for a Phoenix race, it wasn't bad. Hats off, like I said, to Joey and Paul Wolf. Paul Wolf is incredible crew chief. And they keep making all the right calls. So, yeah, hope everyone had a good weekend in the NFL streets. Your boy did not. Probably the worst NFL lineup I've built in like the last 5 years. Never got comfortable on a lineup this week and probably should have like backed off my play a little bit. And I didn't. And I played my normal volume and I got crushed in football. Good thing for NASCAR. NASCAR held me up this weekend. It's just a weird week for me in NFL, so we'll talk about that more on the NFL show later this week. But my main lineup on DraftKings scored 69.94 points. It was a bad week. Bad week. Those happen. They happen. But back in the NBA streets today, we got a 5-game slate. All the games kick off at 8 p.m. Eastern. We do have 4 teams on a back-to-back. So we'll talk about some of this back-to-back stuff as we're breaking down these ones. And yeah, I mean, like I said, just going to kind of do a solo pod today and have some fun while we're doing it. Let's talk some basketball. We get started. Cleveland at Chicago taking on the Bulls. 237 total on this game. It has the highest total on the slate. Cleveland an 8-point favorite. Strus remains out. Ball remains out. Game-wise, obviously this game has a huge total at 237. We know Chicago playing at an incredibly fast pace this season. This is definitely a spot you want to attack. I mean, you know, Chicago plays fast, and I mean, they give up a lot of fantasy opportunities, gave up a lot of three-point opportunities. This is, again, one of the best spots you're going to get on the entire slate. So, looking at the Cleveland side here, because, I mean, I think it's important to get exposure to Cleveland on this slate. It's just kind of trying to figure out who we want to get exposure to. Mitchell's 8,100. He has a lot of upside in this matchup. He has upside in really any matchup on the road. Pace should be up in this game, so definitely don't mind this spot for Mitchell. Garland's been playing really well here recently. His price is still at like 7,100, so I definitely like this spot for Garland. Mobley and Allen, I prefer taking shots on Allen just because I think that Allen has a higher ceiling. I know he's coming off a game where he didn't really play a lot, but I'm not too concerned about that. He's been consistently over 30 minutes all season, and I just think overall at his price, he has a little bit higher ceiling than Mobley. And then, I mean, outside of the 4, right, we have the Cleveland floor, outside of the 4, I think you could take shots on Karis LeVert, pace up spot, over 27 DraftKings points in 5 straight games. I think this is a spot at 5,100. He makes a lot of sense. And then in large field tournaments, I mean, maybe a shot on Jerome or Merrill, just trying to get a little different here, but Wade's back, so the minutes are going to be, you know, he's only going to play about 18 to 20 minutes, but it's, you know, a few extra minutes these guys have. So I really think it's the 4 at the top: Mitchell, Mobley, Garland, Allen. And then in other tournament stuff, LeVert, and maybe, like I said, taking a shot on like a Jerome or something. But overall, probably not going to get there on the 1 lineup or 1 to 3 lineups that I'll build on this slate. On the Chicago side, Cleveland's a fantastic defensive team. We talk about it all the time. It's not the best matchup in the world as far as that aspect. With that said, this game projects to have the highest pace on the slate. We know Chicago's going to try to push the pace. It's not like Cleveland plays necessarily very slow. I think they're 12th in pace this season. So this is a spot where I feel like you could take some shots on the Cleveland side, or on the Chicago side. Vooch at 8,300. I mean, he's consistent, but his ceiling is still pretty capped when everybody is healthy. I think this is a spot that you're potentially taking some shots on Zach LaVine. 6,800 for Zach LaVine. I know he's been dealing with an injury, but when he's been playing big minutes, over 30 minutes in every game this season, really over 32 minutes in every game this season. So, I mean, Zach LaVine is definitely the guy that gets the usage on this team. Josh Giddey, he's okay. I don't necessarily love or hate Josh Giddey here. Point guards have done really well this season against Cleveland. The price for Giddey is the thing that I always come back to that just bothers me more than anything else. So that's where I struggle the most. I mean, the usage on this team is pretty spread out between Giddey, White, LaVine. AU at 5,900. I wish he was a little bit cheaper in this matchup. I could see him potentially having a little bit of upside, but his price kind of gets me off of him. So I want to play Chicago, but I feel like Chicago is priced very appropriately, especially for the matchup. I lean taking shots on a guy like White or LaVine, or even AU, but I mean, the pricing, it's a 5-game slate with a high total, and you're definitely going to be playing some Cleveland. So, all right, we got Sacramento at San Antonio, 223.5 total here. San Antonio, 1-point favorite. Sacramento on a second end of a back-to-back. Jones and Shohan remain out for San Antonio. Branham is questionable here. Malik Monk rolled his ankle in the second quarter, so I assume that he'll be out for this game. He didn't return. I think he only ended up playing 8 minutes. So I assume he'll be out for this game. So obviously we'll start here with the Kings. They're on the road going into San Antonio, second end of a back-to-back. With the Malik Monk thing, we'll be paying attention to this. If Malik Monk sits, Malik Monk is a guy that plays 24 to 30 minutes a night most nights. Ellis could be someone that gets a good amount of run here. He ended up playing 28 minutes on Sunday after Malik Monk left the game. He's not a high usage guy, but he's only 4K. I think overall, though, it's just one of those spots where Sabonis, Fox, DeRozan, Murray are all just going to touch the ball a little bit more. Keegan Murray just continues to play a bunch of minutes every single night, so I could see that. Herter is someone that I really like in this spot as a value play. I think Kevin Herter is just too cheap if Malik Monk if he ends up sitting in this game. He's the guy that I really think could potentially benefit here. He played 35 minutes, got up 9 threes, made 5 of them against Phoenix on Sunday. 4,500 could potentially get more shots too. With Monk out, I like Sabonis. I like Fox. I don't know where they kind of fit as far as my favorite studs on the slate. I would have no issues playing either one of them. DeRozan's probably my odd man out here. And it's weird because he's a guy that has been consistently going over 40 fantasy points this season. So, I wouldn't talk anybody off of DeMar DeRozan in this spot. He's not my favorite. He is going to shoot a lot. And that is definitely something we're looking for. His upside games are when he gets 2, 3, 4 stocks and scores 30 plus points. And he could definitely do that in this spot against San Antonio. It's not a bad matchup by any means. On the San Antonio side, obviously Wemby has kind of been off to a slow start. We've had, I think 2 big games from him, and I wouldn't even necessarily say the Utah game was bad. On Saturday, he had 59 fantasy points. I think overall, with Vassell back at 6,100, he could potentially play like 22 to 24 minutes. And Castle is someone that has been playing really solid minutes and playing a lot better. I really think that Castle is someone you can take some shots on at 4,900. Wimby and Paul. I mean, Chris Paul, probably not somebody I'd play a lot of in DFS. Wimby is your ceiling guy. Vassell, I just don't think he plays enough minutes. Keldon Johnson, he has over 30 minutes in back-to-back games. You could potentially take some shots on him against the Kings here at 5,900. But I think my favorite play today from the Spurs is probably Castle just because of the price. But Wimby has a massive ceiling on any slate. Sacramento coming off the OT game. Wonder how much that affects the players. I mean, this early in the season, probably not as much. But it's definitely back-to-back stink, especially when you're on the road for a back-to-back. You probably feel pretty good about getting like San Antonio on the second end of a back-to-back, just because they're not like this amazing team. So, I mean, that definitely a bump to it. So I like, for what it's worth, I like this spot. I definitely will have some exposure to this game. I think Castle, Kevin Huerter, definitely looking at some cheaper options. Washington at Houston, 227.5 total. Houston, a 13.5 point favorite. Both team on a back-to-back. I assume that Kuzma, Brogdon remain out. Carrington left the game in the second quarter against my Magic, or it was second half. It was weird. Mo Wagner fell on him. It was really weird. If he plays or if he's out here, we'll pay attention to this throughout the day, because if Carrington's out here, it's a definite boost to some of these Washington guys. I mean, first and foremost, like, I don't love this matchup against Houston, but it's a 5-game slate, so I'll definitely look at this matchup. Colaby at 6,400, coming off of a really good game against Orlando. I definitely don't mind him, especially if Carrington sits. I wish they'd play Sarr more minutes. They just don't play him enough minutes right now. I mean, same kind of goes with Valanciunas. They're very careful with Valanciunas' minutes. The other person that, like, Keyshawn George has been playing really solid minutes, and I think at 5,600, he has a lot of value on this slate. So I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at Colaby, and I'll kind of adjust throughout the day if we get news that like Carrington's going to sit. We could see a guy like Jared Butler play 20, 25 minutes if Carrington sits. So watch this news. Kispert could potentially play like 30 minutes. So a lot of potential value here. But overall, Colby and George, the two that I'm looking at here on Washington. I made a note on George, and I put a star next to his name, so I must have liked him when I was doing my research for the slate. On the Houston side, I mean, great spot against Washington. You know, the one thing you worry the most about here is just this game staying close. Houston's a much better basketball team. I mean, yeah, at least we'll have the info prior to tip-off. Yeah, I mean, that's the good thing about all 5 games starting at 8 o'clock. I mean, for me on the Houston side, I love Houston. I mean, you got to play some of these Washington guys, hoping the game stays close. I mean, if this game stays close, I could see Sengun and Green just absolutely smashing. Van Vliet, after a really slow start to the season on the shooting the ball, has been shooting a little bit better recently. He's just really struggling from 3-point land, so that's definitely something to note. Eason at 4,800 is someone you could potentially look at for some value here. Same with Thompson at 4,900. I don't think those guys would be like first guys off the floor in a blowout. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of it for me. I like Sengun, I like Green, I like Van Vliet, Thompson, and Eason. Jabari just really hasn't played a ton of minutes yet this year. And, I mean, even on a back-to-back, unless some people get ruled out, that's when I would potentially have some exposure to Jabari. All right, we got Brooklyn at New Orleans, 213 total in this game. Brooklyn a 1-point favorite. Bogdanovich, Sharp, and Watford out for Brooklyn. Hawkins, Herb Jones, McCollum, Murray, and Zion out for New Orleans. So a lot of injuries here. We'll do the best we can, or I'll do the best I can to break this down for you. On the Brooklyn side, I mean, obviously this game with this low of total projects as one of the slowest paced games on the slate. This game and like probably the San Antonio game are probably projected to be the two slowest paced games on the slate. Looking at the Brooklyn side, I mean, Dennis Schroeder at 7K. I played him a lot to start the season, but now that he's 7K, kind of pump the brakes a little bit with him. Just kind of hope that like his price eventually comes down. Cam Thomas, I mean, he still has a 32% usage rate. He's playing really good basketball. I think he can score 30 points in any matchup. I don't love it. I don't hate it. He'd probably be like the high usage guy that I'd take some shots on. But I mean, how do we not take some shots on Ben Simmons in this game? His minutes kind of in that 24 to 27 minute range. But he's just a guy that fills up the stat sheet. And this is a good rebounding spot. Definitely has some stock upside in this game. So, I mean, Ben Simmons, as much as I hate to say it, I think that, you know, you want to take some shots on him. Played 27 minutes in his last game against Boston. So I assume that the back thing, not going to really kind of worry me too much. Didn't play Saturday because of the back-to-back. So should come in this game fresh legs. I mean, Simmons, I think, is playable. I know it's not comfortable, but I mean, we have to kind of respect the minutes. Nick Claxton's minutes have been trending in the right direction. So if you think this game stays close, you could potentially take some shots on Claxton, which means that Clowney's minutes have kind of been dipping down. Yeah, I mean, I agree, Derek. Hitting that Simmons button is, I mean, it feels sick, but I mean, 4,800 for a guy that has scored over 28 fantasy points in 2 of his last 3 games. We have to look at him at least. Especially in this matchup with New Orleans just missing everybody. So looking at the New Orleans side, a lot of injuries to kind of go through here. I will say Trey Murphy is probable to make his debut for the season. We'll see how he kind of mixes into this rotation. I mean, he's definitely going to have some opportunity to play minutes with everybody out. Zion, Murray, McCollum, Hawkins, Jones. First and foremost, Brandon Ingram at 8,600. If this game stays close, he probably goes for 40 plus fantasy points. Alvarado is still too cheap at 6,200 here. I think you can just keep playing him. He's probably going to be one of the chalkiest plays on the slate. He's just too cheap for everybody being out. I'm going to keep playing Boston Jr. I know you guys are probably sick of hearing me talk about him. But this kid is playing a ton of minutes right now, over 37 minutes in 3 straight games. I think that there's potential that Murphy hurts Boston a little bit, but now that like just all these guys are out, I still think there's a road for Boston to play a bunch of minutes. Don't know how much they'll play Murphy. Robinson Earl's been playing solid minutes. He just really hasn't been doing much with those minutes. So, I mean, I don't necessarily hate it, don't love it. Same with Missy. Playing minutes, but not really doing much with them. I think it's Ingram, Alvarado, Boston, and then that's really it. I mean, you could try to roll the dice on like a Javonte Green or a Robinson Earl, hoping the minutes are there and the production just a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, Boston's been playing really good. Yeah, he has been playing really good. He has 43, 27, 35. I've been talking about him before he was chalk. So just throwing that out there. He will be popular on the slate though. All right, last game. Clippers at the Thunder. 218 total. Thunder, an 8.5 point favorite. Bamba and Kawhi out. Holmgren left the game. He landed weird on his hip, left the game, did not come back. He only played 5 minutes. I assume with how talented he is and how early in the season it is, I think he sits here. So we'll talk about that when we get to the Thunder side. Let's go to the Clippers side here first. I mean, James Harden has definitely shown triple-double upside this year. His shooting has just been kind of all over the place. He really hasn't been shooting the ball as well as we're kind of used to. He's 9,800. I think he's potentially playable. Zubac has been playing really well, but now he's 8K. Norman Powell is the guy that I'm kind of interested in here. He's been consistently putting up like 35 plus fantasy points. He's 7,300. I wish he was a little bit cheaper. Kevin Porter Jr. had a really good game on Saturday. I saw that. Like, it was a really good game for him. KPJ is talented. He's just had a rough go. If they were ever to give him like 25 to 30 minutes, he could crush. We'll be keeping an eye on that. I mean, I really think like the production of this team basically comes through Harden, Zubac, and Powell. Those are the three that I think you're looking at, but they're also very expensive. And this game doesn't have it doesn't project for a ton of pace. It doesn't project for a ton of production either. If Holmgren is out, that could potentially open up maybe a few extra points for the Clippers here, and Zubac could play really well because like Hartenstein's already out. Yeah, I mean the Thunder side, Holmgren matters a lot whether or not he plays. Like I said, I don't expect him to play in this game. If Holmgren's out, that's obviously going to mean more usage for SGA and Jalen Williams. We'll pay attention to that. Lou Dort started the second half, and he's only 4,100. He played 30 minutes against Golden State on Sunday. So Dort would be a great play if Holmgren ends up sitting, if he's going to get that type of run. So Wallace played 30 minutes as well. Some of that was fourth quarter run when the game wasn't necessarily as close. I personally like Williams and SGA, but I think Dort is someone we have to have some interest in here if Holmgren sits and he starts. And I assume that's kind of the role here that happens. I think Mitchell would potentially get some run with the second unit in that scenario, but I think you're looking at Jalen or SGA and then playing Dort for some value, and that's how you're going to play the Thunder today. Yeah, I agree. Jared Allen only playing 20 minutes the other night. I'm sure I made a lot of people mad. I agree. Hit the like button. Turn on notifications. Hit that subscribe button. We appreciate it. All right, let's play the morning grind game, and then we will get out of here. Favorite play under 5K to go 7X. A lot of options on the slate. A lot of good options on the slate for even being a 5-game slate. I'm going to go to one of those earlier games that we talked about. I'm going to go to Kevin Huerter. I assume that Malik Monk sits in this game, and if that happens, Kevin Huerter should get plenty of run, and if he's out there, he's going to shoot, especially against San Antonio. So I like Huerter. I think that Huerter is going to get a lot of shot attempts. I don't necessarily love shooters on back-to-backs. I talk about it all the time, but I think the minutes and the opportunity is too good to pass on at this price. Over 8K to go under 5X, my bust today. There are some options up here. I think I'm gonna go to my boy Vooch. Really tough matchup against Cleveland. I know that Vooch can crush in any matchup, but just probably my least favorite play on this slate. I know this game has a high total. Vooch is my bust over 8K to go under 5X. Favorite 6X play today. This one's easy for me. I know that he's going to be chalky, but I don't care. I'm going to go back to Alvarado at 6,200. 6X seems very likely here for him now that Zion is out as well. So Jose Alvarado at 6,200 is my favorite 6X play. My favorite GPP ceiling play, highest ceiling on the slate. This one's tough. Typically I would say Wemby has that like massive ceiling. He can really crush in any matchup, but I like to factor in price a little bit with this question because I do feel like price matters a lot. So I'm going to save a little bit of money from Wemby and go down to a guy like De'Aaron Fox. I think Fox could go for like 50 to 60 fantasy points in this game. So I like De'Aaron Fox as my favorite GPP ceiling play today. Let's get weird GPP play. It's hard to get weird on a 5-game slate, but I I feel like this price tag is definitely going to make him a little lower owned than he probably should be. I could be, completely wrong, but we'll see. I'm going to go to Cam Thomas at 7,200. I talked about it. This guy has a 32% usage rate. He can score 30 plus points in any matchup. Just kind of need him to get some assists and maybe a couple stocks on the way to his 30 plus point game here. But Cam Thomas, I think we see him shoot 20 plus times in this matchup against New Orleans. Love the usage rate that we have from him. And he's very capable of putting up 50 plus fantasy points in any game. So my Let's Get Weird play today is Cam Thomas. I hope he's not chalky. As far as bets, I have not looked at anything yet, so I am not going to recommend a bet that I have not looked up and did research on yet. I'll probably put some stuff up on Scores and Odds here today, because there's a couple spots that I really like. So see how it kind of shapes up. I was really quickly trying to pull up Cam Thomas's point prop to see what it is. It's 23.5. I'm gonna bet that right now. So I'm gonna live bet that one. Let's see. Cam Thomas. Gotta pull up. Hard Rock sometimes doesn't have these up. I'm gonna see if they have up. All right. New Orleans, Brooklyn, point prop. Cam Thomas, 23.5. That's what I'm gonna take. I'm gonna take 23.5 over on that, and that's going to be my bet for today. Hope everyone has a fantastic Monday. Appreciate you all hanging out over there in chat for the live show and solo pod. Back tomorrow talking hoops. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you then.